You always go, there was never any Russia collusion.
Right.
Russia collusion. Well, collusion doesn't exist in the United States Criminal Code.
Oh, is that right?
There's no term called collusion. Right? What Mueller in the first part of his report said was that they could not prove a criminal conspiracy between members of the Trump election campaign and Russian officials.
So wait a minute. So if criminally there's no collusion, it's just criminal conspiracy. That's an actual
That's
term.
an actual crime.
Okay, that's a crime. Got it.
Yeah.
So criminal conspiracy is an actual crime.
Right.
Why were they saying collusion then?
That was a term that just came up. Trump officials colluded. I honestly don't know who came up with that term.
Wow.
But the whole Russia collusion thing,
wow.
Every time I went on television during that time, and I was on Fox like every week at that time, and they had me on because I was the guy saying, look, there's problems here for Trump.
Right.
Right? And so I was the one sparring with Laura Ingraham and different people on different shows, Lou Dobbs, right?
I remember that one very clearly.
And so, and I said, look, you know, they would say, there's no Russia collusion. I'd say, you're right.
So today we're talking about Trump.
Who else?
Yes, and I got to tell you, if you're watching MSNBC every day, you're going to be thinking, Trump's going to jail tomorrow. Handcuffs, perp walk, it's done.
CNN too.
Yes, but if you're watching anything else, you're watching Fox or even mainstream news in many cases, your local news, there isn't much word about what's happening with Trump. It's almost like it's kind of in the back somewhere. What's really happening?
I mean, Trump is facing a multitude of inquiries, shall we say, right?
It's federal and state, right? It isn't
right.
just.
He's got the Attorney General's civil suit going on.
Here in New York.
Correct. Letitia James has been after him and she's basically made her name off of him.
She's Kingslayer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Though to me, she's not very impressive, but you know,
she seems hardcore, doesn't she?
You know, well, I listen. It's easy to jump on the Trump bandwagon, right?
Okay.
It's one thing to actually have a real case and go after and make something happen. I've yet to see that from her, right? The other thing that went on that just recently ended was the criminal trial of the Trump organization, where his accountant testified against the Trump organization.
So is the accountant going to jail now?
Well, I think the accountant's going to get probation.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
He had a deal.
So who's going to jail?
No one. No one.
So then how's it a criminal case?
No, well, the problem is that it may create, or likely will create, problems for lending, borrowing money for the organization, right? Because now you have an organization that's been criminally convicted. And that's where it creates problems, because Trump does, as a real estate guy, he leverages money, he borrows money, and that's how he funds his properties, right? So banks may choose not to give money to the Trump organization.
So she handicapped the organization is what she actually did.
Well, the district attorney, Alvin Bragg.
Okay,
that's the Manhattan DA's case. Remember, Bragg's predecessor, Cy Vance, went to the Supreme Court to get to compel documents. Right? Trump, while he was president, fought against having to turn over documents to the Manhattan DA. They took it to the Supreme Court, and Trump's Supreme Court, with 3 people on it that he put on there, said, no, you got to give this stuff over.
Got it.
And it was a huge loss for him. And immediately, millions of pages of documents were turned over to the Manhattan DA. But then in that time, in that first year with Alvin Bragg as district attorney, nothing happened. In fact, Bragg scaled back. And he had Vance had hired a couple of well-known white-collar former prosecutors. Was
Bragg afraid? Did he not want to do it?
I think Bragg realized that he didn't have a case against Trump.
Got it.
And I also, when that came out and the Supreme Court ordered the production of all these documents, I was on one of the stations and I said, until I see Donnie in handcuffs.
Right.
He's
right.
Teflon Don.
Got it. Okay.
And so that's the thing. And you were speaking about this, but the thing that concerns me most for him,
right,
is that you have a criminal investigation against him regarding the documents that he had at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, now that's federal though, right?
That's a federal criminal investigation.
Okay.
And
so that, to be clear, that has nothing to do with Alvin Bragg or Tish James. Those are two separate issues.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, I mean, that is something that could potentially land Trump in jail.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if he were charged.
Okay.
And if he were then convicted, he'd go to jail.
Wow.
And so this is the first time.
So that's the big one.
Right. But remember, he was under, you can say during the entire time, you could say Trump was under a criminal investigation, right? Members of the Trump organization with the Mueller,
right?
As special counsel. Now you have a new special counsel. And so that's who Merrick Garland appointed, and that will technically outlast Merrick Garland if Biden were to lose the election in 2024.
Okay. So,
right?
So to be clear, Merrick Garland appoints the special counsel.
Right.
If Biden loses in 2024 and Merrick Garland's removed, the special counsel stays.
Correct. It takes it gets really murky about replacing a special counsel. Like Barr could not immediately replace Mueller.
Got it.
He came in.
Okay.
Right? But what Barr did was basically neutralize the impact of the Mueller report by giving that little summary conference and saying, "Oh, there wasn't." It was a completely misleading conference, and in my view, Bill Barr was the best friend Trump ever had. The best friend, because he spun that in a way I've never seen anything spun before, and he completely took the legs out of the findings.
Got it.
Basically, part two, and when you were talking about Fox News and everything, and that whole side of the thing, they always go, there was never any Russia collusion.
Right.
Russia collusion. Well, collusion doesn't exist in the United States Criminal Code.
Oh, is that right?
There's no term called collusion. Right? What Mueller in the first part of his report said was that they could not prove a criminal conspiracy between members of the Trump election campaign and Russian officials.
So wait a minute. So if criminally there's no collusion, it's just criminal conspiracy. That's an actual
an actual crime.
Okay, that's a crime. Got it. Yeah. So criminal conspiracy is an actual crime.
Right.
Why were they saying collusion then?
That was a term that just came up. Trump officials colluded. I honestly don't know who came up with that term.
Wow.
But the whole Russia collusion thing, every time I went on television during that time, and I was on Fox like every week at that time, and they had me on because I was the guy saying, look, there's problems here for Trump.
Right.
Right? And so I was the one sparring with Laura Ingraham and different people on different shows, Lou Dobbs, right?
I remember that one very clearly.
And so, and I said, look, they would say, there's no Russia collusion. I'd say, you're right. Because there's no collusion. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist in the United States Code.
Wow.
So,
you know what? I would bet that at least half of America, probably 90% of America, doesn't know what you just said. They don't know that.
I would say probably 95%.
Yes, they think, collusion's a crime, and you're like, no, it's not.
It's not a crime.
Okay.
It's not a crime. You have to show that two or more people agreed to commit a crime and then take a step in furtherance of the crime. So one of the things that I talk about is, what's a conspiracy? And I give the idea of, and in conspiracy, you can be guilty of conspiracy without actually committing the actual crime.
Sure.
So you and I decide to go rob a bank. Right? Then we take an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy, the overt open act. So what we
I go buy a gun.
Bingo.
Got it. Okay.
The conspiracy is now come to fruition.
Got it.
It's surreal. We've just committed a crime. You and I talking about it, not a crime.
Got it.
But you go buying the gun, now there's conspiracy. Now, if we don't even get to the point we're on our, let's say we get stopped, we both get arrested at that point.
Right?
Because the FBI is listening in on us or the NYPD, whoever.
Right.
Right? we're guilty. Well, it wouldn't be the NYPD because this is really federal. The conspiracy charge in the state court is very weak.
Okay.
But for the feds, good enough.
Got it. Right, got it.
Good enough.
Right.
Boom. We're done.
Got
and
it.
we would face the same penalties as if we actually robbed the bank.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Ah.
The way the conspiracy laws work is that you face the same penalties as the underlying crime, which may never have been
Well, there we
actually
So
finalized.
speaking of that part, right, you bring up a great point. Isn't there another case, state case in Georgia, right, that is kind of like that, right? The find me the votes part, right? But then wait a minute, is that criminal conspiracy?
No, well, that's an actual election interference claim, right? So that he obstructed justice by trying to force the guy who was a Republican official to get me the 11,000 votes, right? Which was the subject of needless memes on the internet, which were very funny, right? Like, give me 11,500 or whatever it was, amount of votes. Look, he has exposure there, but until I see an actual indictment, right? Give me a complaint at least, right? I mean, which is not going to happen, right? A complaint is a lower type of it's just a what they call a charging instrument, right? The accusatory instrument, a piece of paper that accuses you of a crime. That's also what an indictment is.
Got it.
Right? And a federal indictment is a big joke because you can go in, an agent can go in, let's say you and I are FBI agents, and I can go in and say, Agent Sharpe told me that he spoke to a informant, and he told him this, and therefore, and then all of a sudden that's fucking probable cause.
Got it.
I mean, it's there's so many things.
And you're saying we don't even have that?
No, at this point they don't have that.
So the only piece that if you were in Trump's circle right now, right? If he was asking for your help and saying, what should I be worried about? What you'd be telling him now is, that stuff's not that important. Worry about the federal case for the documents.
Right. And the state case in Georgia.
You were concerned about that one too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because it look, on its face, it looks like there's something there, right? They have that phone call recording. Right. Now the question is, does it violate, what statute does it violate under Georgia law? And, in a state like Georgia, are you going to get 12, people that are going to convict Trump?
Out of Atlanta, maybe. Maybe. But let's go one step further, right? There is a difference between, and this is what I've heard people say, well, they can't do it because he's running for president. But if I understand it right, and you correct me here, there's not a law that they can't charge him. It's just precedent. You don't charge the guy running for president.
It's
how does that work?
Internal memo. So during the time that of the Mueller report, right? So remember, there were two aspects of this. The Mueller said they could not prove a criminal conspiracy. Okay. However, part two, which is what everyone on Fox News ignores, is that Mueller found 10 documented instances of when Trump obstructed justice.
Okay.
Different actions he took, from telling, Comey not to look at this, give Flynn a break, to, there were 10 different instances for which he could have been charged. Now, Mueller took the position, much to the chagrin of pundits like Bill Maher and people like that, who were really angry.
Right.
But, Mueller said, look, the solution here is political, right? I'm presenting, he's a sitting president. Internal DOJ policy prevents me from arresting a sitting president.
Got it.
Right? That's what he said. Now, is that, the Attorney General at the time, Barr, would never have approved it.
Right.
But Mueller could have authorized the arrest of Trump.
So there is no law. So Mueller could have said, we got to arrest this guy.
Screw this 1970-something internal memorandum that says you don't charge a sitting president.
Got it. Okay, so it's not a law.
It's not a law. It's just how they have done this. But the reality is, it hasn't really come up much, right?
Sure.
Who has been under criminal investigation? Nixon and Trump, right?
Right.
I mean, I guess Clinton. You can argue.
Yeah. Yep.
You can argue with potential lying, that under oath regarding, whether he had sex with Lewinsky.
But I think in your point, right? Clinton was impeached. That's political, right? That's not criminal. And Nixon resigned.
Correct.
So Trump is the only one.
And was subsequently pardoned by Ford.
Right, there we go,
right?
yes. Yes.
To prevent a criminal prosecution.
So, but Trump was impeached too, though, right?
Twice, but not related to Mueller.
Right, neither was for Mueller, you're right. That's right. I always think that it was the same
6th
time.
And the Ukrainian funds.
So
issue.
is there an argument that I think many people would say, look, he's been impeached. The Senate has decided to not remove him. Mm-hmm. Done. That's like, if you do it again, it's like double jeopardy, right? Is that type of argument a real argument?
No, because, again, he's not the president anymore, right?
Okay.
The issue regarding the Mar-a-Lago thing, which is there is something to be concerned about, which is that he's supposedly not supposed to have these documents in his possession. And he wasn't president anymore, and he's still possessing it, right?
Got it.
So in theory, he's committed a crime, or he's continuously committed a crime that led to the execution of an FBI search warrant. I mean, when you think about it, right? I'm not aware if the FBI executed a search warrant on Nixon's home or Clinton's home or anything like that.
Good point.
I don't think so.
Right.
I think we, you probably know something.
Yep.
So this was extraordinary, right? The guy who just, your most recent president, your most recent ex-president.
So his impeachment has no bearing on this.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's a political solution. Here, I mean, they executed. I mean, it's a big deal, right? But
so then there's been a lot of people talking that, look, you're going to do that. It's a big deal. You have basically gone into the former president's house and searched it, right? Raided it, as he will always tell you, right? Raided the house. Don't you kind of have to do something now, right? Don't you kind of have to come up with something, right? Or what are you doing?
That's the argument that a number of people who are ex-DOJ, or I should say more political on the political side, have said that Merrick Garland, in order to, I don't know what the right phrase is, save face or whatever, has to take the next step, which is arrest Trump. Yeah. It seems to me, based on what's been said, they have enough, right? He's possessing stuff he shouldn't possess. He's no longer the president. He was asked to return it. He didn't return it.
If it's me or you, we're already in our orange jumpsuit.
Done.
We're already in our orange jumpsuit, done. Exactly.
Done.
Is there any real chance that Merrick Garland didn't know this was going to happen? People have said, well, maybe he didn't know. Maybe it was done behind his back. No, is there any chance that he didn't know there was going to be a raid?
No.
He knew?
No. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Because there's a prosecutor on board who's overseeing the investigation. FBI doesn't act alone.
Got it. Okay.
Stuff, right now, there are times where they may get a tip and they have to act immediately.
Right.
But they still need a prosecutor to draft the warrant, or they can draft it and sign off on it and bring it to court.
Got it.
I mean, there are times, maybe an emergency situation where
but this wasn't
they can go. No.
So he knew.
Of course.
So I guess that goes to my next point. If he knew, again, doesn't he have to do something? Doesn't he have to at least scare Trump? Doesn't he have to do something? Can you just, as Merrick Garland, do the raid and go, got the stuff, thanks, bye? Can you really do that?
The calculus is, for him, do we now charge him? Mm-hmm. What'll happen if Trump is arrested? I mean, I think half the country, maybe not half.
At least a third. It's going to be unhappy. At least a third.
There's going to be a revolt of some type.
But is that... Now, this becomes a harder, almost like a philosophical piece. Shouldn't that not matter? Shouldn't it be, if the country burns, who cares? Justice is blind. It doesn't matter. Blah. Isn't there a philosophical piece that says it shouldn't matter, whatever happens, happens?
I think that's a naive way of looking at it, because you've got to also think, and this is a calculus prosecutors have to make, right? Will you secure a conviction?
Okay.
Right? And Bragg, let's bring it back to locally here in Manhattan, Bragg's like, man, we got nothing. We got anything. Let me get rid of these two guys. Why are we giving them spending all this, money on these two were former federal prosecutors who were looking at Trump, and they all got angry. They got discharged, or they resigned, or whatever. Right? And it wasn't going anywhere. Right. So for Merrick Garland, he's got to look at it. Okay, where would you bring this case? Right? In which courthouse do you bring it where you're going to have a decent chance
DC.
Of getting him convicted?
DC.
I am not sure.
I'm just making it up.
I mean, you would say DC, but remember the DC jury pool incorporates not just inner city DC, but that whole area around it.
But they're all they're all establishment. All establishment hates Trump.
I don't know.
Establishment DC hates Trump. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But but the other thing, though,
I would think you might have a better shot here in
New York.
In New York,
maybe.
Of bringing the thing, but though it would be a harder sell to say, you would think it would either have to be DC or Florida, right?
Right.
I mean, you have Mar-a-Lago, the documents are in Florida. You'd have a little bit more of a tougher time selling.
So
jurisdiction, though, they can make any court.
How does Merrick Garland then, if you're advising him, he says, I'm in a bad spot, Ben. All right?
He's in a bad spot.
I'm in a bad spot here. I got
because when you come at the king, you best not miss.
Absolutely. So he's worried. So is there a way I can find that middle ground of slapping him and getting a win without putting him in jail? Or is there, what do I do? How do you advise him? He comes at you and says, I'm in trouble. How do you advise him?
I mean, at this point, if you believe you have enough, and I'm not saying and again, this is a cursory glance. I've not reviewed all the discovery. I haven't seen the discovery.
Sure.
I don't know. And the discovery, by the way, there is no discovery. There's nothing to turn over to the defense because he hasn't been charged.
Oh, okay? Got it. So he's in charge.
So the government can hold all its cards and hide its cards at this moment. So we're just relying on leaks, right? The DOJ leaks like your bad faucet, New York City faucet, right?
Right.
Like all of a sudden there's all these. That's what we're relying on. What they have.
I guess what most people want to know. I mean, this is all great conversation, good talk, and people like to hear this stuff, of course, and understand. But in the end, what do you think the final outcome is? I mean, I feel like what you said in New York probably isn't much of an outcome. Georgia, maybe. Federal, maybe. What's the final outcome in New York, you think, for Trump? What's your guess?
I think, well, what's left in New York is the Letitia James civil suit. So there's going to be some damage to his organization and whatever, but nothing, I think, crippling.
Okay.
I think the Georgia thing is going to go away.
So in New York, basically, it'll just beat him up a little bit for his business. Maybe he won't do so much New York business.
Maybe.
That's kind of the outcome for New York. Okay.
Right. I mean, they've already tried to strip his name off golf courses and things along those lines, right?
Okay.
I think in the end, it's going to be a big miss.
Okay.
And a waste of...
In Georgia, you think it's not going to work out?
In Georgia and federally with the documents, because I think in the end, Merrick Garland is... Let me take a step back. There are people that think Merrick Garland must charge Trump.
Yes, I've heard that before.
He must. Because, like you were saying a couple minutes ago, that you're going to do this. Well, look, they executed a search warrant on Rudy Giuliani and then recently, and then just said that they're not going to charge him. Right? That was kind of interesting because they usually don't make those pronouncements. So Giuliani's in the clear, and I think ultimately this is just going to go away quietly. And, they're not going to get involved in charging a guy who's going to run again for president.
Do you think they'll use that? Because if it's me, right, I think it's a great excuse. Look, we'd love to go after him, but he's running for president. We can't. We got to let it go.
Right.
Do you think that's the excuse, or is there another excuse, or it's just we say nothing and hope it goes away?
I think, look, it could be that. And, of course, the people on the left will get upset, but then they're going to be doing the very thing that they've accused the right of, which is politicizing the DOJ, right? Well, the right has accused the DOJ of being politicized to go after Trump. The left is doing the same thing, right? They're saying damn it, indict this guy, charge this guy.
Right.
We don't care, right? We don't care.
Right.
I mean, all these people are like, dude, were you ever a prosecutor? Like,
Right.
do you understand? Do you ever defended?
They're just mad at Trump. They're mad.
Right.
Yes, so
They're just upset.
Right.
And they're upset that they have to deal with this guy. The best thing that could happen to Merrick Garland is Ron DeSantis gets the Republican nomination, and that's the end of Trump.
Ah,
Right?
I see.
Then DeSantis really, then Garland just doesn't. Hey, listen, the goal of all this is to prevent him from being president again, right? That's ultimately
Sure, I think
what's
you're
at the heart of this, right?
Yep.
It isn't justice. Right. Garland, to me, is not a guy that has impressed me. When he was, up for Supreme Court justice, I did not like. He's a guy that was a rubber stamp for criminal cases in DOJ, and that's how I look at it. And whereas Neil Gorsuch was somebody who's been a thorn in the DOJ side.
Got
right?
it.
And as Supreme Court justice has taken positions that are contrary to what the DOJ wants. So
your gut is overall, you think nothing's actually bad going to happen to Trump, and we're just using this as a way of basically creating social media content, creating media buzz, getting people to raise money to either support or defend.
I mean, look, if I were Garland, you have this situation where he has this. I mean, you just executed a raid.
Yep.
It is a raid.
Yes.
On his home, on the home of an ex-president. If that's not political, I don't know what is, right? And so you can say, no, he has to do justice and all that other stuff. Part of doing justice is understanding the layout of the lay of the land, and not making decisions that are going to be viewed as political.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, like, there could be a whole, like a deadline, a public deadline. If you don't return these documents by this date, then we will have no choice but to go in there. Right?
That's not bad. But if you were to say that, then why doesn't everybody get that? Right? If the president gets that, are we saying openly, you get that because you're the former president?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you just make it obvious.
Yes.
Okay, okay, got it.
You're the former president. Return what you're supposed to do. Do the right thing, Mr. President. Don't make us go into your house.
I actually like how that sounds. It's a lot better.
Right.
I agree.
Don't make us. That's the move. Merrick Garland could have just gone in front of the people and said, look, there are documents. Our understanding he has these documents. He has until this day to do it. Otherwise, we execute a search warrant. Please don't make me do this, Mr. Trump.
I do. What they should have asked you what to do.
Right. How bad is Fox going to spin that? Right. I mean, they can't. Oh, he's being unfair.
Right.
Dude,
yes.
he's got classified material.
Right.
Like, we're telling him, return the classified material.
Right.
You have until this day.
Right.
I'll give you till Friday at 5 o'clock,
Right.
or else we're showing up at your door and going in and taking it. Right. And the whole time now, to protect yourself, you surveil the area. Right. To make sure that nothing's being taken out.
Right.
This way you have a backup.
Right.
To say all of a sudden you go in there, oh, we got nothing.
Right. No, I like that idea.
We gave it to Putin.
So you've just given us we gave it to Putin. I like that. You just gave us a better way of handling that.
It was terrible to execute a freaking search warrant on his place.
And you feel like in the long run, it's probably not even going to work. Like they're not going to get Trump as they want to get Trump.
Yeah, because ultimately you've got to say, is this the kind of thing that warrants it? And like the stories, the New York Times, these stories. Oh, this. I saw the other day they mentioned all the people that were partying within feet of the documents, classified documents.
Right.
So okay, let me get this straight. People that are coming there to party are going to stop partying and go look at Trump's, go into his bedroom or wherever it was. And so no, it's not going to happen. Right. That's not going to happen. So, like, they talked about how there was this Taekwondo grandmaster. What, was he going to break through the doors and kick through the doors and get these documents? I don't get it.
But no, I get your point. There is an issue. He's got the documents. That's a problem. There was a better way of handling it. That's what you're saying. A much better.
Because then you don't have this political climate. You're going to say, look, Merrick Garland can go out there and he comes across like a humble guy and whatever and stuff. And you just say, look, don't make me do this, Mr. Trump.
Right. And then if he has to do it, it's almost like he's doing it begrudgingly.
Yeah.
Better bet. I like that. Well, Vin, this was great. I appreciate that you gave the people a whole lot of insight. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry, for coming down and being always, being a part of this team here at VNA.